Tessa from MamasGeeky here. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel.
So first one to Kayleigh, please. So, obviously, Jujutsu Kaisen Zero, focusing on Yuta as a brilliant main character. Did you feel any extra pressure knowing that a lot of fans would compare you to Yuji from the series?
You know what? Honestly, I hadn't ever considered that. I knew that Yuji was an amazing main character. I knew that Yuta was sort of the first steps main character originally type of thing. But I also, as far as the dub, I know Adam. He's a wonderful guy, and I also had seen the anime subbed and some dubbed. And I just saw it as an opportunity to give another character in the universe. The only thing I really thought about as far as versus Yuji is let's make sure that I give, a different energy.
And then we'll go ahead with MamasGeeky.
Thank you, ladies, for taking the time today. Loved the movie, thought it was great. I'd love to know how it felt to join this universe for both of you.
It was really exciting, especially because, I did have some knowledge about Jujutsu Kaisen. I hadn't sat down to watch the series, but, I had watched some episodes, and I was like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. And, I feel like it's kind of a fan favorite anime right now, something that is very much talked about and has potential to be even more popular than it is now. And so it was really cool to be a part of something that was so impactful to the anime community, as well as something that was just a little different, getting into curses and these interesting characters that have so much trauma going on to them. I'm all about that kind of content, so it's yes, this is good stuff. So it was very exciting.
Yeah, for me, I was a fan as well as having a professional interest in it. And internally I was like, this is going to be really cool. I know people on the cast. I know this show. It's going to be really fun. But also made myself, I'm somebody who tends to think it's not real until it's out or announced. So I was keeping a damper on it within myself, just have fun in the performance, do your best there, worry about being excited for it later. And so it wasn't until they announced us that I was finally okay, I'm buying a figure.
Anairis, your character goes through a lot of emotions. I mean, tell us about the development of your character's voice through this process.
I remember, because really I think the time that you have to workshop the voice usually is in the audition. Sometimes, you'll get to do more of it in session, but usually it's audition, when you do the audition is when you set the tone for everything. And I remember taking a little bit of time to think about Rika before getting into the booth and doing it. And I'm okay, this is a younger character, but I think in a way she has a sense of maturity to her. So it's just having that young sound, but also grounding her and, making her sound like a kid as much as I can, genuinely. But also just having this kind of air of hey, this is a kid, but, she's gone through stuff, and that's kind of made her more, an older soul in a sense. And I think I tried to play with that, especially, for when I was younger. I was kind of an older soul as well when I was a kid. So just kind of playing with that. And then, adding on the idea of, okay, so this is a mature, not a childish character by any means, or a mature character by any means, but then when she is a curse, she does come off as more mature and gives into these more childish motivations and such. So it was balancing that. And I think in the audition I had originally tried with a deeper voice, but then when I was doing it in the movie itself, I was nah, let me make this more childish. Let me go for something that, just sounds like this little kid maybe throwing a tantrum or just being really excitable. And, it was just kind of playing with the idea of hey, this is a mature girl who just kind of gives into her childish tendencies as a curse.
Hi guys. The bond between your characters, I think, is really the heart of the film, and just talk a little about their unique dynamic and kind of the contrasting personalities between the two of them.
It's for Yuta, I think it's really interesting because I believe I don't want to spoil anything, but I believe he, like any child who sees a traumatic incident like that, blames himself on some level for her. And like, what could I have done? Could I have saved her? And that ever since has been influencing how he thinks. And also, I feel like influencing how he interacts with the world, as well as feeling like he's a danger, right? But at the same time, he loves her, and I think he's still kind of happy. Maybe it's his one solace that she's still around in some form, and it's a very complex emotional battle within himself.
Mm-hmm.
But while he doesn't ignore her, he does sometimes, like, it felt to me like he sometimes felt still a bit distant, or like he was calling on her from beyond the veil, even though he knows that she's right there all the time. So it was really interesting. But then when she's there, he's very tender.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a very good point Kayleigh made. I do think when it comes to like how Rika views Yuta, I think that's a little bit more mysterious. I think we know a little bit less about Rika than we do about Yuta. But I think one thing that is key about Rika and her relationship to Yuta is that she genuinely does care for Yuta. And so, she will do anything for him, especially as a curse. So, in these times of need, when she senses that he needs something, she will go right out there and like protect him every time, almost acting as a kind of defense mechanism in a way. And I think, she gets to, as Yuta kind of becomes afraid of, Rika hurting others and afraid of what he could do to others, Rika kind of takes a back seat. But, whenever Yuta needs her, she will always come out without fail. And when she does, she comes out so explosively every time. And I think that, in a sense, is a testament to how much she cares about him. So I just think they have this interesting dynamic that is kind of hard to exactly place, especially in its origins. But in terms of like where it is now, as you go through the Jujutsu Kaisen Zero, it's like, oh, this is just this weird, perverted, love that came from a very genuine place.
Mm-hmm.
Perverted in the sense of a ghost and a human.
Yeah,
I do
exactly.
want to say, luckily, I was very glad that there wasn't any like any sort of allusion to it being, childish stuff. And I was very glad for that in the performance.
Yeah. So this one for Anairis. Now, you voiced Yelena as well in Attack on Titan. I know Rika's like the opposite of Rika from One Direct Priority, but are you enjoying doing these more darker, more mature, more slightly psychological roles? Are you enjoying that a little bit more as a voice actress?
Absolutely. Like, for me, I guess as a fan in general of anime, like, I love psychological things. Like, my favorite anime, one of my favorites is Fullmetal Alchemist, but I also love Madoka Magica and like all these other, really deep psychological things. So to get to play in that realm is really exciting to me. And, getting to play with different characters as well. And I think when it comes to Rika in Jujutsu Kaisen Zero, she's definitely totally different. I don't think I've actually played a character as young as her. Which, was exciting to me within itself because I was, like, playing with my higher range. But then, playing with the fact that she is this, that she has this kind of alter ego, this cursed side that is just so, out there, and it's kind of, and I think I play a lot of characters that tend to kind of keep things close to their chest. So playing a character that was way more explosive, way more expressive, was a fun challenge, but I really did enjoy doing it. And, it's like, oh, I want to do more of this. I want to be crazy more. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm curious if you guys are similar at all to your characters. How would you relate to them?
Mm-hmm.
For me, I was definitely I was definitely a bit of an awkward, bullied high schooler. At least in the first high school I went to, and then I moved high schools, which is another thing that he does, except he moves to a supernatural, school of curse fighters. Not quite the same there, but I did move to a high school where I met a lot more and better friends, some of which I'm still friends with today. So that is actually an interesting parallel. And I became more confident and more sure of myself and like who I was as a person. So.
Yeah, for me, Rika, I think I relate to her in the sense that she's kind of gone through some trauma that has made her mature much quicker than maybe she'd want to. When I was younger, I think I had gone through a lot of things psychologically that just kind of had made me grow up, and kind of deprived me of my childhood. And, and I think Rika, beyond, her child self, her curse form is very toxic in a sense. And I think I can kind of understand, I am jealous. I just want this person for me because, this is the only person I've ever had, blah, blah, blah. And I think a younger part of me definitely empathizes with that. Because, I think when you're younger, sometimes, especially when you're alone a lot, which, I was, you can be very fixated on something that makes you happy. And I think I can definitely understand Rika's almost obsession with Yuta because, that's somebody that made her happy. That was her best friend, somebody she wanted to get married to. So.
All right. So both of your characters have, a certain special bond. Correct me if, because I don't know whether you two did your voices by yourselves or as a group, but I want to know is how do you develop chemistry between these characters in the booth, whether if you're doing it together or solo?
I know normally for me, and especially since COVID, and it was that way with this, we were in our own rooms. We were doing it on our own. Perhaps that will change at some point, again in the future. But what I do, especially because I knew Anairis beforehand, and I love and trust her skills as an actor. For me, building that chemistry, I think of Yuta and my performance as Yuta and bonding with the character of Rika, because I know that the actor will portray that character well. And so if I bond with the character of Rika and I build the chemistry in my performance to that character, then the other actor will do the same. And that chemistry will come naturally as a process of the writing.
Mm-hmm. I was actually the very last one to record, so I was hearing everyone, including Kayleigh. So, it was having the background knowledge of, okay, I already know what their relationship is, and then getting to hear Kayleigh and being like, okay, how do I play with your specific interpretation? And, there's some scenes where, Yuta speaks directly to Rika, or Rika will speak directly to Yuta, and getting to hear Kayleigh and be like, okay, so you're saying it like this, now let me uplift you, let me support you. And I think we both did a really good job of, playing off the characters, playing off each other, so.
Guys, after getting a chance to explore these characters, would you be interested in returning to like a more mature version of them and their relationship in the anime series if they were to return down the road?
Absolutely. Yeah, it would be
Yeah.
interesting.
If they came back, I would love that. Yeah, just exploring that character, he's one of my favorite characters that I've portrayed in the depth of complexity. So any chance to explore that further with different circumstances, more experience, I think would be a treat.
Thank you so much to all of my monetary supporters, my members here on YouTube, as well as my patrons. If you haven't joined yet, please consider doing so. We have some really awesome perks, including a monthly Zoom meeting where we get to talk face to face. Thank you again to everyone who supports me.